Welcome to the INSEAD TMT webinar. We're going to talk about get data ready for digital transformation. My name is Martin Roel. I'm your moderator for today. I'm a global strategy expert, senior advisor to Fortune 100 companies, and also family-owned businesses. I'm an INSEAD Distinguished Fellow, and then I'm an MBA from 1999. Today's webinar is about a case story. We talk about Stena Line's digital transformation journey, because Stena Line went through a major organizational change back in September 2016, triggered by a shift towards digitization. They developed the digital vision of becoming the world's first cognitive ferry company by maximizing and leveraging the use of technologies such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, robotics, and machine learning across the entire organization. So our speaker today is Jari Virtanen. He's a Chief Transformation Officer, and he's also the member of the Executive Board of Stena Line. He has been driving and orchestrating the overall change program. Jari, a warm welcome. It's great to have you with us. We're looking forward to hear from the front line and also the exciting story I know that you are going to share with us today. Jari is going to run this presentation, and then him and myself will discuss afterwards. So Jari, welcome to our webinar. We are very excited to have you with us today.
Thanks so much, Martin. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm humbled and happy, and let's hope that I can create some value for all you people listening. First of all, I want to give you a small glimpse of what the Stena company is. The highest level is the Stena sphere. We are a conglomerate with 6.3 billion euros in turnover. We have three main areas of business in our company. We are in the recycling business, one of Europe's largest recycling companies. And then we are in shipping, which is the main part of the company. And then we have an investment leg also in the company, which is called Stena Sessan. Of course, we have also real estate in the company, as you can see here, 29,000 residential, so quite a big real estate company, one of the bigger ones in Europe and the biggest privately held company in Sweden. 19,000, give and take, 19,000 employees all over the world. Then one part of that company is the Stena Line, which is it's the Europe's biggest passenger ferry company, passenger shipping ferry company, and by that also one of the bigger companies in the world when it comes to shipping. Passenger ferry shipping is a very typical European phenomenon. It exists in other parts of the world, but in the extent that we have it in Europe, we cannot find it anywhere else in the world. You can here see the vision of our company, and now some numbers about Stena Line. We have 4,300 employees, 18 routes all in all, 36 vessels. We ship around 6.3 million passengers yearly, and we have about 2 million freight units and 1.7 million private cars that are transported through our system. 1.4 billion euros in turnover in this part of the company. The route network looks like this. So we are in the Northern Europe, in almost any place where there is any meaning of being with a passenger ferry. So quite an extensive operation as such. Our head office is in Gothenburg. Now you know something about the company, and then we'll go down to the digital side and the digital transformation of our company. As Martin told you, we have a digital vision, which of course supports the major strategies in the company. We say that we want to be the world's first cognitive ferry company by 2021. And during this presentation, I'll give you hopefully an idea of what we mean by that. When you talk about digital transformation, normally I say that you need to speak about people, you need to speak about mindset, of course technology, but also on leadership as such, about the change process. During the next coming 25 minutes, I'll talk about these four things, because all together it brings then what we call a digital culture in the company, a digital first mindset. Okay, the reason why we do this, at least for Stena Line, is that we are in a super commoditized business, meaning shipping, where at least on the freight side, the price is something that is very, very difficult to beat with any other kind of add-ons that you might offer your customers. And this is driven, of course, by the way we behave as consumers, meaning that the price of the supermarket food on the shelves, it needs to be what it needs to be in order for us to buy it and for the companies to be competitive. And that means then that the added value that you show, that needs to be reflected for the customer in total. So we are doing this, well, basically, of course, to get more revenue, better margins, and be more efficient, but it has to do with that you need to be then more innovative, you need to be easier to collaborate with, and you need to be faster when you're talking about to make some kind of differentiation within shipping. First of all, when we started this journey in the fall of 2016, I'll have to admit that at that time, we had an idea of what we should do, but looking back at it now, I can easily say that we didn't know much about what came out from it at that time. We have learned a tremendous amount of things during these years. But the main thing, and for me personally, leading this transformation journey, I think there was a couple of things that were really important at that time. First of all, we got a very, very strong commitment from the board to do this, and also from our owner. We are a privately held company, so from that point of view, it was very important to get also the owner on board. And of course, the CEO of the company fully committed to this. And the first learning I had, at least, and looking back at this, is that from an organization point of view, the one leading the transformation needs to have straight access to the CEO, in my opinion, because if you want to make true transformation, then you are really changing the company, not only through digital gadgets or digital solutions, you are actually changing processes and doing the full swing in the company. And that means that you need to be close to the guy or girl who is leading the company. Secondly, we talked a lot about creating a good vision, because you need to, it's not only the group management that needs to be with you or the top leaders, you really need to, the people on a broader level really need to grasp where you're aiming, what kind of end game scenario are you looking for when the transformation is done. So you need to create a vision around this, something that people can kind of think about when they are doing their daily work, and to trying to ease their way of thinking when you are actually doing the change. We also did quite a lot of evangelism. You walk the talk is really important. In the beginning, it felt more or less like we weren't creating a lot of value. I said to some of my colleagues, well, I don't know. I mean, we're walking around communicating all the time. And of course, communicating is a part of the change process. So it was important looking back at it. But at the time, I remember I'm an old sales guy myself. I don't come from the technology side. I'm a business guy. So I'm used to do a fast moving consumer business. I really wanted to see some really fast results and feel productive, etc. But looking back, it was good to do the evangelism, walk the talk. Remember, that take the time. It can be difficult to sell to the board or to the CEO because they are mostly very kind of result oriented, but it's important. Now, talking about the digital vision, now I'm going to show you a video which we produced with the purpose of kind of getting the people on board and understanding what we were really looking for when we were talking about the transformation of Stena Line.
Oranges, sweet fruits, but only when picked at the right time. They ripen just as long as they are on their branches. If they stay too long, they grow over-mature. But what decides when the oranges are ready for harvest? The tree, the soil, the skin, a taste of juice from a sample? It's all of this, and interestingly enough, this in turn will affect us at Stena Line a great deal. Let's talk a little bit about what we call the digital butterfly effect. Life is full of choices. Each choice generates a new path. Each path produces a different outcome. Some of these paths are born out of chaos, like a coffee mug being spilled, giving a busy mother a thought, lingering in her head, making her take action later on. But many of these choices can be calculated through the information we send out, consciously as well as unconsciously. What if, in this world of chaotic coincidences and chance decisions, we can sort out the information useful to us, make out patterns and take action based on that information, not by trying to figure things out, but by observing the world around us. Gathering bits of information here and there. Letting that information socialize with other bits of information, merging into a whole, enabling us to see the big perspectives, as well as the smallest individuals. Those small bits may seem unimportant to some, therefore often overlooked, can end up making a big difference to someone else. The butterfly effect states that the flap of a butterfly's wings in Japan can stir up a hurricane in Canada. One minor and seemingly unrelated change in one piece of information can have a widespread impact on a future state. What we do is simply to acknowledge this fact and adapt to it, using our insights to find out more. Because the more we know about how the world works today, the more accurately we can predict what will happen tomorrow. And then we will not be sitting on our asses guessing, oh no, we won't. Then we will know, and once we know, we can go to action. Everything is connected. We just need to open our eyes.
Okay, so by now you've seen the video which we created for people to understand what we really wanted to do when talking about making us a truly data-driven company. And I must say that this video or this film has served us very well during these years in our transformation program. Going then down to a little bit more of the concrete stuff, what needs to be done when you start the digital transformation. I mean, if we're looking, we're a 50-year-old company. There's a lot of legacy stuff, etc. So we say that we come from a situation where we have a spaghetti structure on our data, and we need to sort that data out. We need to structure it. So we have put quite a lot of time in that. We have pointed out persons in the organization who are data officers in order to kind of have collaborators within the organization in order to understand what kind of data we have and what kind of value it creates out in the organization. We have also created a level, a 5-step cognitive ladder where we kind of measure the level of cognitivity that we have kind of created within each focus area in order, and then we go back and we measure and look at what did we say, where did we want to be at a certain time, and how far have we come now, and then we do a kind of a self-assessment in order to be able to know when we are really doing something good and when we are kind of moving forward. I just mentioned legacy, and it is just a fact that a 50-year-old company like ourselves, like any other company, I would guess, also has a lot of legacy systems. And just by looking at our company, we found out when we started this program that we had, I think, 19 HR systems, and the oldest one was from 1981. And then kind of you have these fancy solutions with dashboards, and people come and say, now we want to start to do people analytics. Let's do that. And in the easy world, in the PowerPoint world, you will kind of just grasp that data, and then you start to show, create dashboards with value so you can take decisions. It's not as simple as that. You need to be prepared for what I call legacy hell. You need to prepare your CEO and your board on the time it will take to change some of the legacy systems, mainly due to the fact that you want to secure quality access to data and to get structure in the data. So that is also a learning which we did not understand how much time it would take when we started. Another thing is that we took an approach that we shouldn't, the customer wasn't always right. Of course, we develop solutions where the customer kind of, and the organization and the business is actually an important part of this, but we also have the belief that technology and the people who understand technology can really create value. So what we did also is we created a cross-collaborative way of working, where actually we created a form of working where we put in place a business lead, a transformation lead, and a tech lead in each cross-functional area of working, where these people need to be aligned on what to develop, what is the return of investment on these things, etc. So it means that technology has a very strong say also in what solutions, what kind of solutions, not only how did we develop or what we do, and that has served us also well, that kind of mind shift in a way. And talking about transformation, I just wanted to show you this picture because I mean, digital transformation as such is, we learn now that during 20 years to go, we will have a fourth industrial revolution and many things will happen and we don't understand what, and how can we cope with this change? But I mean, looking at this picture, if Henry Ford would have listened to actually what the customer was saying, he would have developed a faster horse on the left-hand side, but actually he developed the T-Ford, and then a few years later, the Fifth Avenue looked like on the picture here. So we have coped with change previously. Now, one thing also, talking about putting technology in a strong place is actually that I've learned during this process that any leader in a company would actually say that, well, you just would tell technology that if you just do what I need and what the business needs, then I will be fine and we will do the transformation. Because we have been doing transformation the past 15 years at least, so just do as I tell you, then everything will be fine. And we have said that many leaders, most leaders, they know what they want from technology, but as technology is moving so fast these days, there is not many of them who understands or have the chance to understand what they can get today. And that's why technology and the technology people and the competence from the technology side needs to be moved much closer to the business now, not being a separate IT department, but it needs to be embedded in the business organization. And of course, I mean, this is about, it's about technology, but it's also about change. Change is painful, and some people, you just have to acknowledge the fact that some people won't change before the pain of not changing is actually bigger than not changing at all. So that is something that we learned, that you will of course need to align people, but there is also some hard-headed management that needs to be put into the mix in order to get us really moving. And one thing which is in our company important. We are, as I said, we're a privately held company, so there's no access amounts of money that there's no access to money that you can't prove where it's going result-wise. So we've always said that, okay, the best way to do digital transformation is to follow the money, meaning that we have a business case for most things. If not an instant business case, we actually can show how it goes down into the P&L in one way or the other when we do the investments. Because in any other way, you will always be questioned as the transformation organization if you have too many fancy slides, and it takes a long time before you can actually start to see the net value of the investments you are doing. We also changed the process of how we kind of give okay to the CapExes. Previously, it was purely business who gave okay and said, well, we'll need this, we take responsibility for the result, and therefore we need to also control the cost base at all times. So they had kind of the power to make all the investments. These days, the process is that technology actually is the last one to approve these investments, and just to be sure that the solutions we're buying or what we're developing actually fits into the bigger picture and the bigger vision, and to optimize the architecture and the data access, because without the data access, there is no transformation to be talked about. So that is one thing which was really good. One of the first things that I did also is that I recruited recruiting excellent competence is always, of course, important, but now I really took a step here. I recruited some of the best people we have in Sweden when it comes to machine learning, AI, etc. And we have 3 PhDs looking and mathematicians who are really into how AI and machine learning and these things work. And this has helped us greatly, because there's a constant flow of consultants coming into our company with nice PowerPoints telling us that they can do magnificent things with AI. But after we really got some in-depth competence ourselves within this area, it has eased our work tremendously, and the credibility also within the company took a major step when we did this. And now when we have these people on board, which was actually, I have to say, the film has made great things for us as well when it comes to recruiting people, because it profiled us as a very technologically driven company, and it gave us kind of the brand name outside that we had a very, very strong vision about what we wanted to do, and it gave us access to some excellent competence actually. And now having this competence, it moves forward, so it kind of attracts competence by itself, and that's great to see. We have also kind of broke down our organization down to silos, meaning that we are trying very actively to leave the old industrial hierarchical way of looking at organizations. Of course, there need to be somebody at the final end who decides, etc. But we need to, through objectives and through the way we organize the company, we want to put people, the collaborative approach into the work. And that by doing that, we also increase speed, and we get the agile way of working, which is fantastic. Flat hierarchies, small teams, engage people, and pushing the power of decision down to these focus groups in order to make sure that they feel responsible for both the investment and the outcome of the investment and the implementation. Many companies talk about also of creating new business models out of data, and we also talked about this in the fall of 2016, but I'm not sure that we knew exactly what we meant by, but during the years when we started to look at our ship data, we could actually see, I mean, a shipping company, you should understand, we are working with fuel optimization and energy optimization around the clock for the past 50 years. But when we started to look at the data we had on board and we started to compile the data, we also understood that data, by compiling and by mixing the data, we can actually help our masters and the captains of kind of developing a product which we today call Stena Fuel Pilot, which actually now has been rolled out on 5 ships, where we by kind of looking at different data sources, we can optimize the efficiency and the energy optimization of the ship with quite a lot. And since we have a big energy bill, it is also big money for us. So this is a fantastic thing for us. And when we have rolled this out on all our ships, of course, you might ask yourself, well, isn't this something that we could do business on by selling it to other companies? Yes, the answer is of course yes, but we haven't taken any such decision yet. But for sure, if our own captains and own masters, they think it's excellent, then it might have a value externally as well. One learning from this process was also that try to identify the people who want to be part of digital transformation. Try to identify the people who are excited about this. We have especially one captain who you can see here on the picture, Mr. Jan Sjöström. He is a mature guy of age, but he is very interested in this. And by just mixing Lars Carlson, who is the other guy on the picture, he's one of our leaders within, he's head of AI in our company. By mixing those two competences, they have just created this product, and we haven't invested that much money in it, to be honest. It's an in-house product that we develop, and we're really proud of this product. We hope that it can do great things for us going forward. So identify the competences and cross-collaborate. That is actually, I mean, this product was actually developed on the bridge of one of our German ships. So that is how it was developed, not anywhere down in the cellar. I also want to say that when we did the organizational shift by starting to focus more on the cross-collaboration part of how to work, we also moved all front-end developers from our central IT department into the business, close to the business areas, close to the focus areas, and we started to mix these people. And that it took some time before people understood how they should work, but it has, I mean, I think it has been really, really great. So, I mean, at the final end, during the last minutes, 2-3 slides left, talking about what have we done. We have created good tools for our freight salespeople to understand our capacity live, and also giving value to our customers. We have created really nice results in ancillary sales, meaning that people can book different services pre-departure. We have created driver apps for the freight drivers, where they can then understand if the timetable is changing, they can manage their check-in, etc., dangerous goods, etc., they can do from there. So that is really something that has been good. We're also looking at the possibility of course, being a companion to the private cars. If you go on a road trip in Europe for 2-3 weeks, how can we help you through our kind of mobile solutions and be a part of your holiday there? We've developed a live view on our newest ships now for the staff on board to understand exact segments which are coming on board, which products are normally the ones that are selling best for these segments, etc., in order to increase our onboard sales. And then we have AI-driven pricing today on the consumer side. We have also, we're handling now capacity and how we optimize our capacity is machine-driven these days, monitored, of course, by knowledgeable employees, but we don't do this manually anymore. Quite far have we also come in how we operationalize and digitize our port operation with these amounts of freight units and these amounts of kind of private cars. It's a really big logistics in our ports, and therefore we look at, of course, all these automated check-in, automated loading of our ships. How can we optimize the loading there? And we have come quite far also in this area. And on board the ships, we have now on our newest ships as well, self-service solutions in our retail shops, and of course you can order food, etc., and services on board through screens on mobile. That is also in place on these ships. Finally, we underestimated, to begin with, at least me, what good planning can do. I think there is also a great value to put a lot of time or put good time, quality time in doing your planning, aligning your roadmaps, aligning the business cases and the return of investment into these roadmaps as you go, because it also helps the other parts of the company to understand where in the transformation process you are. So that is a learning I take with me next time we do this. Then that needs to be prioritized higher, at least in the beginning. And then, as always, you make good plans, you do great things, and you think you have everything in shape, and then COVID comes or something else comes, and then your plans really need to be reshaped again. So everyone has a plan, like Mike Tyson says, until they get punched in the face, and that is actually, then you need flexibility, and then you need to kind of be able to take a step back, make new plans, adjust to the new situation, and go from there. Even in dark times, like we are living in these days with COVID-19, which I'm sure puts restrictions on all of us, I want to leave you with a saying that our owner has, Mr. Dansten Olsson. He is a young 73-year-old guy who is really on top of his business still. He always says that every day has its bright moments. So please think about that, and thank you for listening.
Thanks so much, Jari. That was really a great presentation. I liked all of it, and I also like your video on the digital butterfly effect. It was really beautifully made. So thanks for sharing all the insights here. I want to start maybe to ask you what really started you on this journey here, because sometimes you need some triggers or you need a burning platform. You did talk about an industry that was starting to be more commoditized. Was it all of it, or was it more like a basket of different things? Because a lot of us, I guess in the audience, we kind of look at how do we get our own transformation going and get that buy-in. So what triggered this? What triggered Stena Line to get started?
Well, there is actually a single event that I would say is the starting point, because it is our current chairman, Mr. Carl-Johan Hagman, who he was invited to San Francisco and to go and meet it was a cluster of business leaders who went to the States to be inspired by digitalization. And they went to Singularity University and all these places, Google and God knows what. And when he came home, the guy is a very inspirational leader. So when he came home, he really took us, and he said that you need to understand, guys, this is where it's going to happen. We need to do something about this. And from that moment, we first of all, the board created a kind of, I don't know the English word of it, but let's say a focus group for digitalization, where we started just to talk about what will it mean in the future and so on. And from there, then it went on to an organizational change, and here we are. So it was something like that. But I would also like to say that it helps a lot that our owner is he's a guy who is very interested in technology and innovation. So he's an easy guy to convince when we're talking about innovation stuff, and some kind of combination there, I would say.
I guess it goes a long way when you have the owner at the top, and he's also the owner of the company. I understand that they get it, and he got it quite early on with a lot of excitement. So, but didn't you meet any resistance in the management team and among some of the executive directors? I mean, I know it goes a long way when the owner want to do it, but weren't there any initial resistance to all of this?
Yes, absolutely. Not any real bad will, I wouldn't say, but I think it works like this. When the signal is coming from the top and you're doing these changes, most people are like, yeah, we're in and so on. But it didn't take long before people start to ask, what do we really get for this money? Where can I see it in my P&L? What have you really done? And these kind of questions. So yes, the answer is that, of course, there will be resistance. And what I also learned is that you move faster in certain areas where the leader of that area is more receptive to the change, and then it takes a longer time in other areas. You will not be able to move the company, at least not such a big company as Stena Line. You will not be able to move it in the same pace in every area. You just need to. In the beginning, I thought that, well, we'll need to persuade them to go in the same pace. But I left that thought after a while. I thought that I would work with those people who want something, because it's very difficult for the other ones finally who haven't maybe done anything to kind of complain about that nothing gets done because it's moving in some other area. So there is some psychological effects in this, I would say.
So it sounds to me like almost like a dance of roses here, because it got mandated by the top and by the owner here. Were there any issues on the people side? Because I mean, you have a lot of leaders across Stena Lines. Were there any roadblocks on the people side among some of your leaders that you had to shuffle or convince much harder? Because it kind of cascaded down from the top, but I mean, the reality hits when you're out in the local frontline and local markets.
If you look at the company today, compared to what it was 2016, I would say that I don't have an exact percentual number, but I would say that quite a lot of leaders and key position holders have been shuffled around or moved to other areas where they might do a better job, and some other has decided to leave us, and some have decided that they'll have to leave, and so on. And this was only done in a faster pace maybe than normal, because that's, in my opinion, that's change management. It happens all the time, but it might take a longer time when you're not pressured by having a focus like digital transformation during a time period. So from that, yes, we have moved quite a lot of people. We have, HR has been a very active part in doing this thing, and especially when we move people into cross-functional clusters, that was a bigger change than you would imagine for some people. Somebody has been sitting by the best window all their life, and now suddenly they need to go and sit in the middle of the office. Big problems for some people, but you have to have respect for them.
Goes a long way when it comes from the top, from a very dedicated owner here. So now you kind of got your organization in place, and you got people motivated. At least they were ready to get started, because this actually took some time. So let's go into the digital transformation journey here. How did you go about the entire process of getting your organization kind of data ready? I mean, you talked about very complex operations. You're operating ferries and ships and a lot of stuff. It's very diverse. You're spread around Northern Europe. You talked about breaking silos. So kind of data readiness in such a complex organization like yours. How do you get started? How do you grasp it?
I wish I would have an answer which is very, very structured and clear. I'm afraid I don't have. But one thing which I've learned during this process is as well that if I look at I don't know if this is relevant on time, but if I look at the slides that we made in the beginning of data readiness and what we needed to do in order to be able to transform ourselves, etc., I can't use any. It's only 2 years ago. I can't use any of those slides anymore, and it only showed how little we knew by that time. So strategy by doing has been quite a lot, but of course I think one crucial thing is that we recruited some very, very skilled people around architects and people who really understand data in the complex world of data and how to structure it, etc. And what was needed to achieve a situation where we could call ourselves a cognitive company was that we recruited the right people. I mean, without those people, it couldn't have been done. We wouldn't have been anywhere. But on the other hand, I must say that it has been step by step, because you can really feel it when people start to grasp that, now I get it, because now I can see this data. Now you give me access to this, and then they get so excited. So they want really everything by that time. Step by step, quite a lot of mistakes, I have to say, but not any major mistakes. The ability to hit brakes fast and change direction is also kind of very important. So you don't end up in these humongous investments that you don't dare to say that you went the wrong way at the final end.
So did you feel that your culture almost changed throughout this transformation somehow?
I think it changed very much, actually. I don't think there is a lot of, at least leaders in the company, who wouldn't say that it has changed. And the biggest reason why it changed so much is that I got such a tremendous support from my CEO and the organization, who at all times, we have this strategy picture where there is all these traditional things, sustainability and all these values that you need to have as a company today. And right in the epicenter of that picture says digital transformation. So there was no way of looking at that picture or talking to the CEO without them getting a lot of questions about how they are using the digital in order to improve the operation or improve sales and so on. And it is really, the ships are there. The old good heritage of the company, meaning the values of being a family company and all these things, they are there. But in many aspects, I would also say that we have changed quite a lot. I mean, only listening to business leaders when they made their 5-year plans the other day, it's like, even if it's the same guy or girl, they're talking in a different language.
Yeah. So when you started to design and then later orchestrate your data to AI digital journey, what were some of the key drivers and what's the process behind it? In other words, how do you get started on all this AI for a company like yours?
Well, some of the things, I come back to the deep knowledge of AI that we acquired through these people. And some of the ideas, I mean, as a business leader, not being a technologist, I've worked with digital transformation all my life, but I can't code. So, but some leaders understand quite a lot of how they can use technology and AI to do it. But what we have also educated leaders in what AI is for the first, because in order to be able to understand what to ask for, you need to understand a little bit about the capabilities. So education and having the depth insight of what it really is, and putting those people close to some areas like pricing or capacity or fuel consumption, etc. And I can't say I know the exact process, what happens, but when you have, it comes down to when you have the right people, the right competence and people who really want something and they have a common vision of what they want to achieve, suddenly you come to one step, and when you come to the first step, you normally see 2 more things that you can do. The biggest problem we have today is that our management and CEO asks, well, when is this project finished? and it's not very popular to say that it will never be finished. Digitalization is like electricity, it will be there now. But there's also a cost involved in this, there's focus on it, you have to focus on the right thing. So now, every time we come to a certain step, there's 3-4 other possibilities there. I don't know if it answers your question, but if you look at the fuel pilot, the initial thing was actually to save bunker, meaning save energy. Now we talk quite a lot about what it can, because the reports we need to do as a transport company when it comes to sustainability, they are quite extensive to authorities in order to measure how much we kind of pollute the air. Now we really think that the fuel pilot might actually be able, through its technology and through its intelligence, to do all this reporting automatically, because we have all the data there now.
And it was also when you discussed the example with the fuel pilot, I mean, you got the captain and some of your colleagues together here. So I think that was also part of your transformation, that people saw the outcome. It was not only the fuel in itself, it could actually lead to so much more. You became much more cross-functional somehow, because the fuel project turned into much more than just fuel somehow. So that's, I guess, also part of transformation.
Yeah, and that is actually, you might have the vision. We had one process that we call trade management, which actually has to do with that we want to optimize the capacity to the right price, and it's revenue management more or less. But then we start to talk about what does that mean? What does it mean in a cognitive world? Well, then we start to talk about manning. So if we can predict volumes, if we can predict different things 18 months ahead, well, if we have the right data for the manning, we might also do predictive manning. And we put we have 5,000 people on board on these ships, 2,500 weekly that we're changing. It's really a lot of logistics behind it. So there you have another example where it started from one thing and then suddenly the conversation ended up in another area. Now we are actually focusing on the manning side quite a lot because of course manning is a big cost for it. And we're not doing it only for, of course, the cost in itself is important, but we're also doing it for the convenience of the staff, to do scheduling on mobiles, etc. So, because I mean, seafarers, it's not that easy. The HR department calls them and they should be on board tomorrow morning without, because we need somebody there. They need to get their children to daycare and they are away for a week, etc. So all these things that we can do, it comes step by step.
AI is one of those kind of modern buzzwords, right? And it kind of promises an endless field of opportunities. And I think that there could maybe be a certain risk of getting lost in doing fancy stuff. So what would be some practical advice from your side to kind of keep the AI initiatives on track so it kind of extracts more business value, organizational value? Where the boundary is here? Because I guess you can end up doing so much with AI. So where did you put the boundaries? How did you manage that process?
Well, if you ask my employees, I think they would answer one thing: follow the money. Because we really talk a lot about that. It gives answers. We are a truly commercial company and the owner is super commercial, etc. So if we ask ourselves all the time, where is the value? Because of course, soft values is what you can end up with. I mean, there's no end to how many soft values you can create and so on. And customer experience, of course, is very important. But we started from a point that from the beginning, we knew that certain processes could be helped a lot by implementing AI on one or the other level into that process. For example, pricing or capacity and so on. And we started just there because we could see the results there. There was a lot of people who said that, well, you should know exactly as a consumer where to park your car through the mobile on the ship. That is a very customer-friendly thing. And you can develop that. Will it bring any value? Well, not instant value, at least. It will bring loyalty going forward. But I mean, when you're talking about capacity, 2 million cars and 2 million freight units and 36 ships, 1% there is 10 million euros in result improvement. So we started there by saying, follow the money and trying to keep our head and our focus on the net value to begin with. The further we go, though, I have to say, we also start now to focus much more on the customer experience side, on the soft side of this, because obviously the customer experience can't be forgotten in a digital transformation. Many people would say that's the first thing to start with. But we decided that, okay, there's these 4 or 5 areas where we know there's money to be gained. So let's go there.
We always teach at business school that the customers is always right. You had a very interesting slide. You said customer is not always right. How do you balance that? Because I'm sure you have taught your entire organization to put customers first and looking at those wonderful experiences in such a complex company like yours. How did you reconcile? How did you balance that? And what did you use that for?
Well, I'm not sure we did that so much in the beginning, but on the other hand, we are such a customer-oriented company. I used to say that if we can't get a unit through the checking, we will find something that lifts it over to the other side, regardless of the cost, actually. So that wasn't a major problem, because whatever we said we would do, there was always somebody hitting us in the head and saying, well, what about the customer? We're not doing anything for the customer. So the weight was so much on that side. Now, I'll have to admit that during the past 2 years, I think that the weight might have gone too much over to the production side and to the technology side. Well, the only good thing COVID did to us is also that we had to reassess the situation once again. And now there is a lack of customers. We, of course, wanted to gain customers at any other situation previously as well, but we had more or less 6.5 million customers yearly, give and take, if we just did what we should do. Now we have not at all 6.5 million customers. There is really a big battle about the customers. So now we have actually decided to start super focusing on the customer again. So maybe the answer is that it goes a little bit in waves depending on the business situation and where you are in the company. But of course, there's balancing to be done. You cannot say honestly that we don't care about the customer, we will do this. No, it can't be done. You'll have to use your intelligence.
Do you suggest throughout such a complex process that you went through that you need to have someone maybe in the leadership team, if not you, someone else, to really look at the entire journey and all the initiatives from the customer's point of view? Because this is so complex, and as you said, it goes up and down, and you may lost touch a bit with the customers throughout. How would you reconcile? What's your advice on that?
Very, very interesting question. I've had so many people who have said to me during these years that we need to have a customer advocate in the group management or somewhere who decides throughout the customer journey. And I'm a little bit, I'm not sure. I know there's companies who has it. There's always a risk with these positions that they will have opinions about everything, but at the final end, it will not come down to some real decisions. That's one side of it. On the other hand, if you do the model we have, you might end up in doing something that doesn't fit together in the customer journey. But we had, as I said, we organized this in a way. So I had a position with me in each focus area called the transformation lead, which also had the responsibility of taking care of the customer journey with the other transformation leads in other parts of the company, talking about that. And of course, we ended up from time to time in discussions where it should be and how should it be.
So have you come to a better place today, having gone through that since 2016? I mean,
we don't still have one single person who is responsible for the customer journey. And I think we have learned to cope with that fact and to really truly cross-collaborate and take responsibility of it. And when we have decision points that needs to be taken, then we have a commercial director who at the final end is the representative of the customer who will then say, no, I don't want this solution. It's nothing, the customer doesn't want it. So we have a business lead there as well who will kind of complicate it. Sounds complicated, but it's also complicated to have yet another cross-functional team member in the group management who will have opinions about everything as well. The CEO is also there. So there's some benefits and some disadvantages, I would say.
Yeah. I want to take a step back on potentially some of the key challenges that you face throughout. I mean, and it doesn't have to be only to the travel and transport industry, but in terms of, quality of data, security, organizational change, resistance, or anything else. I mean, when you look back, what are some of these key challenges that you had to get around?
Well, you mentioned security. I mean, the shipping industry is an area where you can't joke about security in any industry, but especially not when you are moving ships on the sea with thousands of people. So I think that we in the beginning, we were so fast moving and so eager at times. So we didn't do anything to compromise the security, of course, but at times we didn't have an aligned strategy and process especially around how to look at ship security and what could be done and why could this server be there, or what kind of solutions are we using? So that is one thing which has been a certain challenge, but I think that I haven't heard any challenges. We have structured it in a decent way today, so we understand what we're doing. I would say that competence is still, I mean, maybe in my presentation, it sounded like we have attracted all the competence we need. No, we have not. Gothenburg is a small place on earth. There's just so many really skillful technology people there, and there's a lot of competence. Volvo is there, and there's a lot of companies there. So
they'll be happy to hear that.
Yeah, well, they are really skillful and good. So we, of course, getting the right competence is also to a certain level a challenge. I would say we have, from the history, maybe we have been using quite a lot of consultants historically in our software development. I come from the startup world myself. I'm not used to that at all, because I think that key competences around a certain area must be in-house in order to feel that you really grasp and understand it. That has also been a certain cultural change where we have been working quite hard to try to come. And just when we were about to come there, COVID came, and I mean, so there's always something.
Yeah.
Going on.
When you look back, were there like one key roadblock that you really had to get rid of in order to get momentum to when you really launched this in September 2016? When you look back, were there like a single roadblock where you said that one you had to crack before you really got momentum on the project?
Well, that was actually because we had a centralized IT department as a shared service center at that time. It was, thank God we have a CIO who understood this thing. It was a little bit painful, of course, but it wasn't a major thing. But if we wouldn't have been able to move the front-end developers into our organization and really get them into close business contact and get a full control of what they were doing and get them aligned to the business cases and all these things, I'm not sure we could have gained so much momentum as we have done. Yeah. I think that's a really important learning, that previously everybody has put things in the central units in because it looks nice on the cost side, but we didn't add any cost. We just moved the people closer to the customer, and then we made sure that those people were really working closely with the back end, so we didn't lose much there. Right? There's some benefits with every organizational model, but I think that was quite important, actually, to be honest. And thankfully, I had a CEO who understood this. Otherwise, it would have been really difficult.
You ran and you run a very complex transformation still undergoing, but what were some of the major risks that you see, and how did you mitigate and address those risks?
Well, I think one of the things that you can be a little bit scared of when you look at the numbers, the money you invest yearly in this. As I said, I come from a startup background. The company was purchased by Stena for 10 years ago, and then I kind of, I'm still here, and coming from the small environment where you have detailed control of everything and you understand what each developer does and so on. And then when you start to look at the amounts that we invest yearly in this, and in Excel, everything looks just good when it comes to return of investment. But if you look at it from a business point of view, you can get kind of moved by the money involved, and are you really getting paid for the money you are investing in it? But I suppose it's the same in every area. But we are a shipping company, so when we invest in ships, everybody is convinced that this is a good investment. But now we are investing in IT, and then that, of course, gets questioned from time to time, and that has been a thing that have come back to my mind every now and then. Are we really doing the right thing? Are we doing a good job? And coming from the business side and from the sales and marketing side myself, you can always measure what we're doing. You know at all times whether you're doing a good or a bad job. In this kind of process change and transformation change, you as a leader, from time to time, you at least I have gone back and looked myself in the mirror, and am I really creating value here? And I've talked a lot to my colleagues. Are we doing the right thing here? And try to balance then that with do what you're convinced is the right, but also listening to the business and the colleagues in order to do the right thing. Of course, there's, yeah.
So where do you see AI is heading? I mean, will it become mainstream? And what are some of the key trends you see? What's the future for AI?
Well, there's a lot of people who could talk all days about this, that it will definitely do and so on. But I think, well, the answer is that yes, but it's not so uncomplicated still today. So, I mean, people are talking about that you can do your own programming going forward and codeless and God knows what, all these desktop solutions. The day when it's really easy and user-friendly, but yes, it will be in most of the areas we work with. But to get really paid off today, you still need to put quite a lot of time and competence into the area before you can see the real results. And that means also that smaller companies, it will take some time. And then there is also this, how do you measure it? When is it AI and when is it just a code that it's really clever, and what is what there? The answer is that yes, it will, but it's not so easy as it looks on some consultancy PowerPoints.
So now that you, Jari, now that you look back and you can actually look back, and I think with pride and for the achievements you've been through here, are there anything you would have done differently throughout the process? A couple of good advice for us.
Yeah, well, since I'm quite an action-oriented person coming from the sales and marketing side, I should have put more time in planning, aligning roadmaps, really grasping that area, because I understood too late that that is actually the only way in a big company to be able to align with all parts of the company. Because you might think that when you are a director on a high level in a big company, when you say something, it instantly starts to happen. But I used to say that when I say something in Gothenburg today, if I'm lucky, it will echo in Scotland after 6 months, a little bit. So I think the roadmaps, the alignment, the preparation, we did a good job without knowing it in the evangelism side, talking about the vision and creating the momentum. We should have allowed ourselves to put more time in the planning phase as well, in order to get in real position to do stuff. We were running a little bit fast in unstructured ways in the beginning because we were so eager to show that we could create some value, of course. But we should have been a little bit cooler at that stage and made our planning a little bit better, because then the full movement should have, I think it would have been a little bit faster on the overall level. Maybe something like that.
So what's next on your transformation journey? What's on the agenda moving forward?
Well, it's interesting you ask it, because in a short time, we will do changes again.
Wow, there we go.
I can't talk too much about it now, but transformation is a movement. I knew when I started this job that there was some time limit to it. I don't think that I can give you a hint that a separate transformation organization is nothing that can exist in its current form for eternity, because it only has a value a certain time. COVID might have helped us a little bit in that, so stay tuned.
Very interesting, without revealing too much for us here.
Well, I can't say more at the moment.
That's understandable. We appreciate it. Any here coming to a closing here? Any key advice or closing remarks to all of us here that may embark on a similar journey? Anything on a closing note?
Every day has its bright moments. You have to keep your head up and keep your positive side of this, because there's a lot of daily challenges where you can really, if you are a negatively minded person, you might really fall down in some deep shallow holes. So that's the best advice I can give.
And I think you were quite lucky that you had an owner that did believe in transformation. He drove it as an owner.
No, I mean, if I would have done this on 2-3 steps lower down in the organization, somebody just would have said that you are in charge of this. I think most of those positions, they disappear sooner than they came, actually, because there will be a lot of PowerPointing, but there will be very little action. So I've been lucky from that point of view. I've been lucky that I've sold the company before, etc. I didn't have to be so afraid. They didn't like me. I could cope a day or two without it, the job, if that would be the case. Certainly, I don't hope so. But there's many aspects. You need to be bold. You need to dare. You need to be able to speak your mind out without being afraid. But you, of course, need also to be a very good listener in order to be able to align with the business so you get the movement going. Yeah.
Fantastic. Jari, this has been a wonderful hour spent with you, learning from Stena Line and kind of your personal reflections and roadblocks and what you have done on your digital transformation. Thanks so much for spending time with us today. We're very grateful. Thanks for your contribution to INSEAD.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm proud and honored.
You're welcome.
I'm an old alumni, so I love the place. I've been a couple of times there. Fantastic.
And we hope to have you back sometime soon again.
Certainly.
So that concludes our webinar today. We hope that it inspired you and you can go back and you can share it. And I hope you're going to bring a couple of key nuggets and pieces back to maybe your own transformation journey. We hope to see you at the future INSEAD webinars. Have a great day ahead. Thank you very much.